Have you ever seen a Prime Minister look more cornered, more desperate, and more humiliated than Keir Starmer did today? Just outside the gates of Downing Street, the heart of British political power, a crowd erupted not with polite disagreement, not with quiet criticism, but with raw fury. Their chants cut through the London air like a knife. One word, over and over, growing louder with every shout: traitor. And as Starmer stood there, surrounded by security, cameras rolling from every angle, the country saw a man who couldn't run from the truth. If you thought the political chaos of recent weeks was over, you were wrong. This moment may well go down as the point where Starmer's leadership began to truly collapse. But what exactly happened? Why were these protesters so enraged? And more importantly, could this be the breaking point that sends him out of number 10? Before we break down the explosive details, make sure you subscribe to Precious Update, because we are not the mainstream media. We bring you the stories they try to bury, the voices they try to silence, and the truth they don't want you to hear. Now, back to today's shocking events. It began like any other orchestrated political appearance: Starmer stepping outside Downing Street to give carefully rehearsed remarks about unity and stability, those vague political buzzwords that usually keep the press calm. But this time, the public wasn't buying it. A group of protesters, many holding signs accusing him of betraying British values, gathered directly opposite the famous Black Door. Their message was not polite disagreement, it was raw, unfiltered rage. And it wasn't just one or two voices. The crowd grew in size and volume until the chants of traitor drowned out Starmer's speech entirely. Cameras caught it all: Starmer's jaw tightening, his eyes darting nervously toward the police, and his voice growing more strained as he tried to plow through his talking points. The whole scene became a metaphor for his leadership desperately trying to project control, but being completely overpowered by public anger. And this wasn't just about one decision. The protesters represented a growing coalition of people furious over multiple issues: his handling of the Tommy Robinson arrest, the Connolly court case, his ongoing feud with Nigel Farage, and even his alleged tensions with King Charles. In recent months, Starmer has positioned himself not as a leader who listens to the people, but as one who dismisses dissent as dangerous or extremist. That might play well with the London media bubble, but out here, on the streets, it's boiling over into something far more dangerous for him: a total collapse in trust. Some political insiders are already calling this incident a PR disaster for the Prime Minister. Not because politicians haven't been shouted at before, but because of what this moment represents. It's not just one protest. It's a sign of the mood in the country. Starmer has spent weeks brushing off criticism as the work of a small, angry minority. But when that so-called minority is showing up outside your door, cameras rolling, chanting in unison, and when their message instantly trends across social media, it's no longer something you can ignore. And the footage spread fast. Within minutes, hashtags like Traitor Starmer and Downing Street protest were flooding X and Facebook. Millions watched as Starmer stood there, visibly rattled, his smile faltering. Clips were shared alongside captions accusing him of selling out Britain, of putting globalist agendas ahead of the people, and of ignoring the real issues facing working-class families. What makes this worse for Starmer is the timing. Just days earlier, polling showed his approval rating hitting a new low. For a man who entered office promising to heal the divides and restore trust, the reality could not be further from the dream. Instead of uniting the country, he's facing revolts in Parliament, fury from the public, and open challenges from political rivals who smell blood in the water. Some analysts are already comparing this moment to the infamous scenes of Gordon Brown being caught calling a voter a bigoted woman in 2010. A single event that crystallized public perception. For Starmer, the image of him standing powerless while a crowd chants traitor could be that defining moment. Once those images are burned into the public mind, they are almost impossible to erase. It also raises a bigger question: if this kind of protest can happen outside Downing Street, with security, cameras, and media attention, what's happening in towns and cities across the country where politicians aren't shielded by armed guards? Reports are already coming in from across the UK of growing anti-Starmer sentiment at local events. Farmers, small business owners, veterans, even students, people from completely different walks of life are finding common ground in their opposition to him. And yet, if you listen to the official government response, you think nothing happened. A spokesperson dismissed the protesters as a handful of individuals, even though the footage clearly shows dozens, if not hundreds, of people. This denial only fuels the perception that Starmer's government is completely out of touch. The opposition, of course, wasted no time in pouncing. Nigel Farage called it the clearest sign yet that Britain is fed up with being ignored. Reform UK MPs have started openly suggesting that Starmer's leadership is now unsustainable. Even some within Labour are whispering that his inability to handle direct public anger is a serious liability heading into the next election. It's worth remembering, no matter how polished their speeches, no matter how carefully they stage their appearances, moments like this are the ones that cut through. Because they're real, they're unscripted, they reveal the gap between what politicians want us to see and what's actually happening. So, was today just an embarrassing moment for Keir Starmer, or was it something much bigger? Could it be the moment that starts the clock ticking on his time in power? And if this is how he reacts to protesters outside his door, how will he cope when the political and economic crises bearing down on Britain truly hit? One thing is certain, this wasn't a fringe protest. This was a warning shot from the public, and one Starmer can't afford to ignore, even if, judging by his reaction today, he'll try. But if the Prime Minister thinks the chants will fade, he might be in for a brutal surprise. Because once the public decides you've betrayed them, once that label sticks, no speech, no photo op, and no spin doctor in the world can save you. And as Britain heads into a period of deep uncertainty, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: the people aren't just restless, they're ready for a political reckoning.